Hello folks, boatbrew.com here. Today I'm gonna tell you how to approach drafting with Eternal Masters. That's the next edition, this special edition that is coming up pretty soon. And there are a few ways how you can approach this. There are a few archetypes, but I would like to highlight the most, I guess, appealing ones. And what you see on the screens are parts of these basically Reanimator archetype to draft in the set. The problem I have is that there are essentially 3 cards that can get you big things into play: Extract, Animate That, and Sneak Attack. That's pretty much it. Then I looked at what beefy big green creatures you can get with the nature order, and turns out it's basically just Sylvas and Regal Force that you want to get from it. Everything else doesn't really matter that much. Of course, it's nice to get Animate That plus the World Gorger Dragon, but it's asking a lot, and a Gorger is a mythic, nature order is a mythic. So yeah, the problem with this archetype, while it's super sweet, but most of the time you're looking at hard casting those giant monsters and not actually cheating them into play. Sneak Attack is great, but it's also a mythic. Karmigari is a rare, Entomb is a rare, and then a lot of beefy creatures that you want to bring back are also rares. There are a lot of them, some of which are actually uncommons, like Ingester is fine to reanimate back, Havoc Demon is fine to reanimate back, because then you can trade with something and then wipe the whole board through the trigger on this guy. But a lot of the time you're looking at actually casting those things. Rorix is fine as like that. Crater Healing is also fine because it's just 6 mana. So are other creatures as well. The Cascade's Timur card, even though it's 8 mana, but you want to actually cast it to get the Cascade out. And then Vizara and Arcanis are 6 mana, so they're castable. So there are a lot of very good finishers and good creatures for substantial mana cost, but with good abilities. But because there is no Dread Return, there is no Breach from the low, Flamekin Zealot is a card that you're most likely just going to hard cast, and it's actually nice because red-white happens to have a fine token theme, and we're gonna look at this up next. And I think it's one of the safest archetypes to be drafting. Unlike Reanimator, while it's sweet, it's gonna be very powerful when you get it, but I wouldn't be actually focusing on it or really coming forward into the draft thinking that, like, yeah, you're gonna just draft Reanimator type attack. So most of the time you're just gonna try to ramp into those big guys, or just have them as your finishers in your mid-range control deck. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual archetypes that I've prepared for you. So let's look at the tokens. Basically, it doesn't mean that you're gonna be locked into 2 colors. You actually can be either black-white or red-white. Green is fine to pair with, but most of the cards that are really standouts for these archetypes are in those Mardu colors. So Flamekin Zealot actually works out fine. You have Chief to make tokens, you have the Trenches or Mogwai Marshal or Zishikan Commander to make tokens. You have some black cards to make tokens like Aristocrats, you have a few white ones to make tokens like Raise the Alarm. And you have a lot of support for this archetype in terms of pumps like Rally, the Peasant's Zealous Persecution, Torrent of Souls, Field of Souls, Intangible Virtue. So most likely you're gonna be featuring white with this archetype, and the second color is gonna be basically based upon like the rest of the draft. It's realistic to be sort of black-red tokens, but most likely that would mean just a beat-down deck, not really so much oriented on tokens. Then, Elves is a cute archetype, but there are not that many cards, and there are very few cards that actually make you want to be in this archetype. Actually, Land of Elves is not really one of them, but Timberwatch, Shaman of the Pack, Imperious Perfect, Huntmaster probably are the cards that will push you towards that deck, as well as Elvish Vanguard and Heritage Druid. The problem I have with this archetype, while if it works out it's gonna be pretty strong, is that the archetype is not really that well represented, so you would have it mixed up with a lot of just overall decent cards, so there is probably not gonna be an opportunity to go deep for that deck. Though if you manage to pick a bunch of Huntmasters, then I think you could have an interesting deck, but then this actually means you will have to draft a bunch of cheap creatures. Luckily, quite a few of them are commons and uncommons, so it is realistic though, but it's not the archetype that I'm actually that excited about to draft, but I wouldn't be mind playing them because it's very streamlined. It has a lot of cheap cards in it in terms of mana cost, and yeah, it's gonna be decent. A lot of mana acceleration, which is pretty rare between Land of Ver and like Symbiote and Heritage, and Deathrite Shaman, which is obviously not gonna be that great. There are no fetch lands or things like that, but it's gonna be okay even without the fetch component, so without making it a real mana dork, it's still okay. Then the archetype that I think is one of the safest one and one of the easiest to draft, probably even easier than tokens, because it doesn't really rely on many rares, is the blue-green tempo, or you can call it blue-green threshold slash flashback slash madness, although there are no real like madness cards, but there are a few like threshold cards and flashback cards. Quest Speculation is pretty decent because it can actually get quite a few things: Silent Minds, Roar, Silent Departure. Then I believe you have both Wonder and the Trample incarnation as well, so you can make a giant automaton and give it flying and trample with those. Yes, so there are quite a few cards that you can fish for with Speculation, and you have your classical Mangoose and Werebears, even though it's pretty hard to it was pretty hard for me to actually realize that those are in the set because they changed a lot of pictures even for deep analysis. Sage is gonna be enabler for this deck and for the kinda reincarnation slash reanimator decks as well. So is Luther. So there's a chance that you would just start drafting your safe, stable, consistent blue-green tempo, and then incidentally you'll slip into a bit of black, and you'll end up with sort of a blue-green splash black deck that can actually bring back some big stuff. Simply because Animate, Dead and Extract are uncommon, so I think it's quite okay. Then Millikan helps you to mill, Sage helps you to mill, Automaton helps you to discard, so does Luther. So yeah, I think it's one of the safest ways to approach this draft. Just start drafting this base deck, and then you would have room to slip into black and have a Sultai mid-range Reanimator deck kind of but then probably one of the most powerful archetypes would be Blue-White Control, though it will be probably much harder to actually draft and to build, because a lot of the cards that you want for this archetype will be rares and mythics, so that's a problem. But there are so many good ones that basically just couple of good rares or couple good mythics out of those free packs that you get to open, and then you can be easily in that deck. basically, if you open something like I don't know, let's take a rare which is not insane, like Arcanics for example, and then you open another rare, not a mythic, something like Wrath or Disc or unexpectedly absent, then yeah, I think you at that point would know where you're heading, and then you have solid commons and uncommons like Swords, Plowshares, Counterspell, Face Feathers, and of course you wouldn't mind a bunch of rares, but those probably will be very hard to get, because Top goes into almost anything. Scepter can go into a lot of decks, Disc can go into a lot of decks, but there's so many insane blue-white control cards that I think that it wouldn't be really that often on rare archetype people will be drafting, and it will be just absurd. You have every card is just so good, like balance. Of course it's a mythic, but still Jace is absurd as well. But if you just open something like a Disc, which is a rare, it's crazy, and then with Future Sight you can bury your opponent in card advantage so harshly. There are no fetches, so that again makes Force Future Sight a little bit worse, but still okay. So there you have it, my first look at the archetypes from Eternal Masters. There are a few others, but I don't think they're as well supported as these ones, even though some of these are not super deep either, but let's say modestly deep. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to subscribe. I think I'll be doing at least one more video on the sets and the drafting and how you approach and what is actually good and what is not. I think in the next video for Eternal Masters I would just cover all the oddities, all the cards that you should probably try to avoid, and just cover all those not so obvious traps and so on. So yeah, until the next sale, goodbye folks.